So Augie got her countdown to stop, but is she safe? And Jin and Jack are playing the game. Are they safe? So welcome back. This is Sean's Take on Things. I'm your host, Sean Redmond. Today, we're talking about Three Body Problem, episode 3, entitled Destroyer of Worlds. This is your spoiler warning. After this, I'll assume you've seen the episode or don't care if I spoil it. I will also be using clips from the show, as is allowed under the fair use provision of the free copyright law. Yeah, I will be using clips, as is allowed under the fair use provision of the copyright laws of 1976. Let's dig in. So right up front, the episode is called Destroyer of Worlds. Now, the Destroyer of Worlds is, in the Hindu religion, Shiva. And there is a triumvirate or a trinity in the Hindu religion of Brahma, who creates the universe and everything in it, and then turns the universe over to Vishnu, and Vishnu cares for the universe and everything in it, all the way up until Shiva arrives and destroys the universe in a dance of fire and terror. I believe it's called the Tendata dance, and Shiva is the destroyer of worlds. It's interesting that Robert Oppenheimer, who created the atomic bomb in the US, when they tested the first one successfully, he famously quoted that I am become the destroyer of worlds, a reference to Shiva, that he has introduced the destruction. And we get a reference to Oppenheimer in a minute. So Clarence shows up outside of CERN. And outside of CERN, the big Hadron Collider in Switzerland, there is a statue of Shiva. And that there really is a statue of Shiva outside of CERN, which I have always thought is odd. Because the big concern about CERN is that it's the biggest collider in the world, and they were going to be looking for the Higgs boson particle and basically creating singularities or black holes by crashing particles into each other. And people worried that if you create a black hole, the rest of the planet will fall into the black hole, destroying the world. So Clarence goes in, and we find the latest scientist to commit suicide. There's no evidence of a countdown this time that I saw, but this scientist apparently committed suicide by kneeling next to a bathtub full of water and drowning himself. And Clarence makes the statement that Oppenheimer's mistress killed herself the same way, but a lot of people think she was murdered. So that's the reference to Oppenheimer. In looking through the scientist's things, they find a headset. He was playing the game that Jin and Jack are playing. So Clarence takes the headset back with him. So the Oxford Five are hanging out, talking about recent events. Augie needs to use the restroom, and she goes upstairs to use the Japanese style one that's touchless. And Jack takes Saul out of the room to show him all of the snacks in his garage, leaving Will time to speak to Jin. Jack's a good friend, and Will does speak to her, and they have a very easy conversation, but Will does not tell her that he has cancer, and he doesn't tell her how he feels about her. It's a little bit sad, I think. So Augie goes into Jack's bedroom, opens a box that has Jack's name on it, and finds the headset, and then puts it on, gets her head cut off by Sophon. I think that's the name of that character in the game, Sophon. 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 And then she heads downstairs to yell at Jack for having it. Now let's just touch on that for a second. I don't care how good of a friend of mine you are. If you're in my house, you go to the restroom. If you just look into my room, my bedroom, that's fine. You look around, that's fine. If you start opening boxes of mine and digging through them, looking for things, we're going to have a problem. So that's not a very cool thing. And literally, it would have been very Jack-like to have the box sitting there with the headset on top of it. And she could have seen the headset and just picked it up, because it doesn't look like anything else, right? But the box is just a box. So that was not cool on her part or the writer's part. Anyway, so she goes downstairs and she's yelling at Jack. And then everybody finds out that Vera had been playing the game. So it changed her shortly before she committed suicide. And Augie makes, some pretty good points. with the countdown that only she could see and the stars blinking that only people on the Earth could see and the satellites couldn't. These people are very adept at digging into our brains. Stop playing the game. And she makes them promise they'll stop. And they promise that they won't play anymore, which is a promise they immediately break. And they're on a video call. And Jin has a whiteboard documenting her progress or lack of progress. And I thought it was funny. Jack makes fun of her for having a whiteboard in her apartment. And she goes, "It's my work. Don't you have snacks around your place?" Fair. And of course he does respond with, "Yeah, but you can't eat a whiteboard when you're high." Which I'm going to say, okay, yeah, you probably can't. Guess it depends on how high you are. So that was a nice banter. And then they decided to play 2-player. Don't know how they knew they could play 2-player, but they both put on their headsets and arrived together to clear the level, level 1. And they get to see the Pope, because now they're looking to talk to the Pope, Copernicus, Jin, and Sir Thomas, Jack. And they get there, and there's other players who are obviously other players. And did I say level 1? Sorry, they're on level 2. And Jin has figured it out. And she begins explaining to Pope Gregory what a 3-body problem is. And she moves the candelabras in the room and the apple that she took from the follower on the road. If we orbit 1, we're stable. But if we get disrupted and pulled away, we then wander through the gravity of the others and all 3, and that's chaos. And it's at this point that the civilization comes to an end with molten everything, volcanoes, lava, and the follower on a horseback crash through into the room as lava, burns the floor. And the image of the horse on fire with the follower on fire screaming for Copernicus to save her is the stuff of nightmares. It really is. So everybody dies. Civilization is lost. But Copernicus and Sir Thomas correctly identified the 3-body problem, so they may now move to level 3. And we see Clarence with the headset that he got from the scientist's room talking to his boss, and they analyzed it, which I thought was pretty good. And it's got, retinal scans and, neuro this and blah, blah, blah. So it knows everything that's going on in your brain, and it can feed you any information it wants, and it reads all the information coming out of your brain. So they believe, they leaped to a conclusion that I didn't see coming, but I guess we needed to get there since there's only 8 episodes in season 1, that the headset's being used for recruitment. I don't know how they did that, but recruitment for what? Big question. So we get to Will. Will has undergone the surgery to remove as much of the cancer as they can to buy him some more time. And he's still a little loopy from the dilaudin, which he calls diluted. And Saul corrects him and says dilaudin. And Will says, no, it's diluted. So, whatever. And Will relays the story that while he was unconscious, he had a nice conversation with his cancer, and the cancer agreed to just stay in his pancreas, and they would share the body for the rest of his life, which isn't the weirdest thing that's happened in this show. And then he asks Jack why he's wearing a silly hat, even though Jack's not wearing a hat. And so Jack, being used to dealing with friends that are high, just says, "Oh, I was wondering when you'd notice. Where's yours?" So just a cute, fun, light moment. So we get to Augie at work. And as you recall, to save her life, or to stop the countdown, rather, she shut down her company. And this man, who I assume is the CEO, is threatening her that she can't just throw them out of business, and he and the board will start it back up without her if she chooses to continue with her breakdown. I thought it was Augie's company. I thought Jack said, what did you call your company? And I guess they had to put somebody in charge to be able to do that. Because what we're going to find out between now and episode 8 is what happens when the work that Augie was on gets started up without her involvement. Does her final minute tick away? We'll find out. I am sure we will find out. But here, let's talk about that for a second. I was thinking about this. So when Tatiana, the mystery girl that lit Augie's cigarette and told her, you can quit your job or quit your life, but don't let the counter get to 0 because nothing good happens at 0. Now, hold on. So she gave the threat that you can end your work or end your life, but don't let the counter get to 0. Well, what happens at 0? If getting to 0 ends their life, then that's the same as ending your life. So why would you take the shortcut out? Just let it expire. So that's going to be the revelation, that when the countdown gets to 0, nothing happened. But nobody lets it get there. They all commit suicide or quit their jobs. I think. What do you think? I think it's an empty threat. But stick around to the theories at the end, because I have a big question that I'm going to want to discuss. So Augie does, so I sort of alluded to it. She turns on the research again in private. And as soon as she does, her countdown starts again from where it left off. And she shuts it back down and the timer goes away again. So that's why I said that. If they turn it on without her and she's powerless to stop them, will she lose that last minute? And I think it will. I think they'll turn it on. The countdown will start again. And we're going to find out what happens when it hits 0. So Jin and Jack, Copernicus and Sir Thomas, back in the game, are now in Chengdu, in the pleasure dome, outside the pleasure dome of Kublai Khan. And as they're walking toward the dome, they see the follower as a soldier. And there's a lot of soldiers. And this is the first time that the follower says, can't talk to you, soldier. But you're running out of chances. Eventually the world will really end. So that's the first time we've heard that there's not, you don't get to just keep trying. There's only a certain number of times or a certain amount of time before. So they get to the dome, and there are obviously 2 other players there who have already presented and created this thing with what they say is 30 million soldiers, which is impressive. And they all have white and black placards, so they can be a 1 or a 0, a yes or a no. So they've basically built a gigantic computer chip running on binary that will solve the problem. And I thought it was an interesting moment when the 2 players that are there turn to Copernicus and Sir Thomas. And the guy says, yeah, I've created a mathematics called calculus. And he flips off the 2 of them. And Jin tries to explain that it's not going to work. And they execute the thing and everybody turns there. And basically it comes down to nothing. Everything turns black. All of the signs turn black and it comes down. The 3 bodies in the sky, the suns, all align. And when they align, the entire civilization gets lifted off the planet, and that civilization is lost. But I can't remember why. Oh, and as they're all being, gravity is ripping them from the planet. That's when Jin has the revelation that no, the science doesn't matter. We have to save the people. We're not supposed to solve the science. We're supposed to save the people. And that's the key. So this civilization is destroyed, but they realize that the important thing is the people. And so they're allowed to move to level 4. Now, let's just briefly, I understand the willing suspension of disbelief. I don't have trouble. But 3 suns lining up in the sky will not cause more gravity. It doesn't work that way at all. Like the tides won't even be worse. Anyway, I'm not going to harp on it. There's a lot of issues in the science, in a show about science. So we met Mike Evans in China in the 60s when he was trying to save the birds. And it turns out that he and his people are the ones behind the game. And they've been watching Jack and Jin play. We've seen the person at the monitors watching people play. And it's Mike Evans' people. And so since they got to level 4, he said, vet them before the London summit. So now they're going to be invited into whatever they're being recruited for. Mike Evans sits down and keys an old looking squawk box and addresses the person as my lord, which a lot of people are giving religious connotations to. I think it's more like from the feudal Japan or the Middle Ages, my lord, the lord of these lands, that sort of thing, not Christ. So, and it wouldn't feel weird addressing somebody as my lord in the 21st century. And then he inexplicably, and the response, the voice on the squawk box, to me, sounds like Sofen, the character from the AI game, from the one that slices people's heads off and advances them to the next levels. Now, it could just be the same voice, or that's the person. That's my lord. Or they're just using the actress twice. I'm not sure yet. But that's what it sounds like to me. So both Jin and Jack get invitations to go to the Sunset Lounge at 10 o'clock p.m. They get there, and it's a seedy, rundown warehouse-looking place. But Detective Clarence is watching. So both Jack and Jin, I guess, were instructed, I missed this part, to bring their headsets. So they bring their headsets, and Tatiana, the strange woman, is there and says, whenever you're ready. So they put on their headsets to play level 4, and level 4 begins. And level 4 is Sofen and the follower standing there. And they explain that their planet is actually a real place, and there is no answer to the 3-body problem for any real length of time, and the only real answer is to flee. And so they did, because of the invitation that was sent to come to Earth, they built an interstellar fleet, and they are on their way. The civilization is called the Sangti. Of course, we know the first person to make contact was from China, and it was Wenji Yi. They're currently 4 light years away, and they'll be here in about 400 years. So Jack is done. Jack doesn't want to play anymore. He's freaked out. Jin gets an invitation to go to another place. So we see Clarence waiting outside Jack's house, and he can see through all of the glass into Jack's house. And what he should be able to see, but can't, is that Tatiana is there. And she backs Jack up against the window, pushes him pretty hard, again, enough to crack the window, and then stabs him and kills him and says he should have kept playing, leaving him dead in a pool of his own blood. And Clarence, looking at the house, sees nothing, just sees normal. Tatiana turns to leave, and as she's walking away, she vanishes. So that's the end of the episode. So let's talk about some of this. So in reality, if the Santi are 4 light years away, if their planet is 4 light years away, there's only one place that can be, and that's Alpha Centauri, which is, of course, the closest star to us. It is described as a 3-star system, but it is not a system that is in a 3-body problem, if that makes sense, based on what we know. What confuses me a bit is the headsets and Mike Evans's people's ability to do what they do, because there aren't any aliens here yet in this story, so their technology couldn't have been brought here, because it's going to take them 400 years to get here. So how'd the headsets get here? How'd the headsets get built? Did they, through the stupid squawk box on the ship, did we tell somebody how to build it? Like, I don't understand how the ability to make people disappear on video and build these headsets for virtual reality, how all that happened when they're not here yet. But I am enjoying this show. I think it's good enough that I am going to have to go read the books, which I did not read. And I don't know if you've noticed, if you do a search on YouTube for 3-body problem episode whatever number, you'll get these from several of us that are making them from right now, and you'll get a whole set of them from a year ago when the Chinese language series released. I didn't realize that was a thing. But let me know what you're thinking of the show. That's it for me for episode 3. My name's Sean. This is Sean's Take. See you next time.